Hi, Nicholas. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasure chatting to you.
Beautiful. And thank you for honoring the invite. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you. Okay, Nicholas, you know, I am quite excited to have you on the show for a couple of reasons. Firstly, my interest in seeking knowledge because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. Secondly, the second reason why I'm excited to have you on the show is for the sake of my audience. I believe there are some things that Nicola knows, um, that some of those folks needs to hear you say this stuff, directly from your mouth, in order to experience transformation. I firmly believe that. And thirdly, that is me. I believe I am definitely going to learn one or two things from your story, your insights, your experiences. Okay, so for that reason, Nicholas, let us get started with your introduction, the how the journey has been so far, the challenges that you faced, and how you overcame them. And afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Nicholas, over to you.
Well, these topics that you're talking about are obviously quite deep and meaningful, so I'm very pleased to be able to talk to your audience about this. I think, I can talk a little bit about my background and then we can talk about some challenges. I am South African, so I grew up in South Africa and then went and studied in the UK, came back to South Africa, and the working environment had changed. So instead of the white folks oppressing the black folks, it sort of turned around. So we had a taste of our own medicine. And I decided if I was going to succeed in a modern Africa, I'd better get to understand a bit more of the continent. So I had an opportunity to move to Nigeria, to Lagos, and set up a research company there. And that was my first experience of non-South African black folks.
Really? You
Yeah,
okay?
serious.
Right now, are you in Nigeria currently?
No. I'm in
Okay,
Norway, but
okay,
yeah. But
okay.
can you imagine? I lived in Nigeria for a long time.
Whoa, that's amazing, man. Had it been you're still in Nigeria, I would have just said we should connect to something. That's amazing. I love
We could
that.
have a gulda
Yeah,
somewhere.
I dare you.
Yeah, so I was in Nigeria, and every day was a Wahala day, and so anyway, that was my first experience of real Africa. Because in South Africa, we say if we're going to Zimbabwe, we're going to Ghana, we say we are going into Africa, or we're going to Africa. We don't see South Africa as Africa, even the local folks. So that was interesting, and what that did is it gave me an experience that not many African people have, which is experience working in other African countries. So when I came back to South Africa, I joined a company called Nando's. And I'm sure if you like pepper chicken, you know Nando's. And I helped expand them into India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, a whole bunch of emerging market countries. So that was good. And I obviously learned there to work with a whole bunch of other cultures. So I'd been used to African culture and then was having to get used very quickly to working with Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and a whole bunch of other folks. And what that taught me is that no one culture is right. No one culture is better than the other one. And the way that we communicate and talk to each other is very different. What your expectations are and what my expectations are two completely different things. So that was a big learning for me, just understanding how my understanding of the world is completely different to somebody else's. And that's given me quite a lot of value in the rest of the work that I've done in other countries. Now, from there, I went and joined advertising agency. I moved back to Nigeria. I worked with Globacom and with Mike Adenuga and all of these big ogas in Nigeria. And that was tough. Very hard work, lots of work, long hours, difficult environment. And again, when you look back, when you are experiencing things at the time, you might think this is unbearable. What am I doing here? What am I learning? But afterwards, now with the value of hindsight, I can go back and say, wow, that really taught me resilience. That really taught me how to talk to big men. This really taught me how far I can stretch myself. I remember one night, it was, I think, New Year's Eve, not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and we were called to the chairman's house, and my driver had gone for the weekend. So I had to get an Okada and drive with my laptop on the Okada to the office of the chairman, and then wait hours for a meeting with the chairman. So at the time, not enjoyable, but I can look back at it and laugh at that. And then I joined Interbrand, which is the world's largest brand organization, and that's where I learned to be a specialist in branding and brand strategy and dealing with big rebrands, banks, airlines, insurance companies, all of these big brands. And that was a fantastic experience. And I've made lots of friends during that time as well. But what that did for me is, while I was working at Interbrand and working in emerging markets, I realized that we've got so many local businesses and brands that have potential to become something great, the potential to not be overtaken by the Unilevers, the Nestlés, the Coca-Colas of the world. So I decided to start my own agency called Wunderbrand. And Wunderbrand's been going for 13 years now. One of our biggest clients is Axis Bank in Nigeria. We work with Axis Bank in Ghana. We work with brands in the US, in the UK, all around the place, and in South Africa. And I mean, a whole different episode to be on the ups and downs of that business. But if I could just say where I'm at now, I lived in Malaysia for 4 years before this, and I'm in Norway teaching digital marketing to Norwegian students. So I wanted to give back some of the learnings I've had during my time in marketing and advertising, and thoroughly enjoying myself here in Oslo.
Beautiful. You know, one thing I like about you is, in every situation you find yourself, you always ensure that you learn one or two things from it. You know, you mentioned, okay, what you learn from this is, what you learn from that is, and that's a good one. In every situation one finds oneself, ensure that you grab the lessons in it. That's a good one. Okay, so Nicholas, shall we get started with the questions? All right, you've been mentioning a particular word, emergent. All right, so how do you build brands in emerging markets? Can you talk to us about that?
If you have 4 days, yes, but I'll try and give you a summarized version. And there are different types of companies. There are the small little malams, the small businesses, which generally are going to struggle anyway. But what we look for in building emerging market brands are companies that have the potential to take on the big guys, like I mentioned, the Unilevers and the Procter and Gambles. And what that typically takes, brands are built over a period of time. Brands aren't something you can't pay $1 million today and have a brand tomorrow. It takes time. And I always talk about how companies like Facebook and Google and X and Tesla were overnight successes in 10 years. So it takes 10 years for a brand to be built. And what I've seen in terms of emerging market brands is that quite often it's family-owned businesses, and they've been started by the grandfather. The father has improved it. Now the son has come back from America or Canada or the UK, and he's bringing all these new ideas into the business. And that's either where the business succeeds or the business fails. Now, how one builds a emerging market brand, and if we take Africa as an example, it's quite difficult, because as I mentioned, brands take time to build, and a brand is basically a promise. And the reason why people buy Unilever products and Coca-Cola products is that they are guaranteed a certain quality of delivery. When you buy Coca-Cola, it tastes the same every single time. When you buy Colgate, it does the cleaning job on your teeth every time. The problem we've had with quite a lot of local brands is the consistency of the product goes up and down, up and down. And that is a huge challenge for lots of businesses. So when we talk about building emerging market brands, we don't just look at making a nice logo to make it look international, but we go deeper into the business. We go, okay, are you consistent in how you put your logo across all of your materials? Are you using the cheapest printing material? Are you using the cheapest products? Are you using substandard delivery methods, etc., so that the delivery times are late, or the product tastes different this time to the next time? The first thing we want to try and do is make sure that there's consistency in the delivery of the brand to the customer, and that takes time. So that for me is the biggest challenge when building emerging market brands. And there are lots of companies that do have those quality controls in place. And the second challenge is that as soon as you become any good as a local brand, the big boys want to chop you. They want to take over. And I've seen this with a lot of brands that Coca-Cola and other businesses have bought up. As soon as they see it taking a bit of their market share, or they're popping their heads up, they buy them, or they put them out of business with discounts, or by crowding them out of the market. So there are tons of challenges trying to build a homegrown brand. But I think with things like online retail, and people wanting to support local, you've got to embrace your locality for certain brands. And for other brands, you've got to sometimes pretend you are not a local brand, because as you probably will know, no prophet is appreciated in his own town.
That's right. Very correct. Okay, I got that. So let us talk about how the branding industry has changed in the past 20 years. Can you talk to us about that?
You're making me sound like an old man now. So in the in the past 20 years, I think when I was at university, and when I was going into university, I wanted to work at a brand agency, because the brand agency was this shining tower on the hill where all the smartest people worked, where you made lots of money, where you worked on these huge projects. And in those days, there wasn't Canva, there wasn't Adobe Creative Cloud where you could just download all of these fancy programs. There wasn't Shutterstock. There wasn't Pexels. There weren't all of these amazing products that we have now. In those days, you had to build a brand manual from scratch. You had to have a designer to draw out the logo, build it nicely, have theory behind it, and you'd have these people who'd been working on typography for years and years. Now, you can download a perfectly good brand manual from Canva, from Shutterstock, from online for free. So all the internet has changed the access to knowledge about branding. Branding used to be this black box where you had to use consultants like Interbrand and Brand Union and all of these companies to come in and explain to you how branding worked. Similar to what we've got with Instagram, everyone can take photographs now with the phones they've got. It hasn't put all of the photographers out of business, but the industry is perhaps not as sexy as it was 20 years ago. The same thing with the branding agencies. A majority of branding agencies have collapsed or have been absorbed by other businesses, or have reduced in size dramatically. So there's been a huge change in the brand industry in that sense. And what you've got now is that branding function, because branding is about building value, brand value. And that's more an accounting, and that's more a process skill than just logos. So the branding industry, if I can just summarize it, has moved from creating logos to really moving towards building brand value for the bottom line of the organization. So it's more a consulting role than a coming in and getting a brand manual and a pretty new logo.
Okay. I didn't know that before, Thank you for explaining that way. Okay, so the second to last question, Nicholas. What is creative data science? Creative data science.
Well, I'm glad you asked about that, because that's one of the topics I love talking about. We've all heard about AI. We've all heard of ChatGPT. We've all heard about Python and all of these programs that are out there, and that data is going to change the world. And it's very true. And we can see it in our daily lives that we are using AI programs more. AI is being integrated into our life from, if you've got a Google phone, iPhone, Samsung, all of these things, it's just integrated into our daily life. So AI and data science, we use it every day. What creative data science is, because I set up a data science company in Malaysia. So I started before the ChatGPTs working on these kind of concepts. And what I thought is that we are going to have lots of people who are good at maths, who can do coding, but they have no creative originality, no ideas. They know how to write sums, they know how to write code, but how do you create more Steve Jobs? And rather than just data scientists who the computers are going to take those jobs anyway. So what creative data science is about, understanding data, understanding the numbers, understanding what you can do with all of this new technology that we've got, but putting a creative layer on top of it in terms of, we've got all this data, we've got all of these new opportunities. You need somebody to be creative who understands the concepts to actually say, okay, with all of this new technology, here's how we can apply it in an innovative and creative way. So I believe we need more creative thinkers versus robots who can code well. So that's what creative data science is about.
Okay, I got that. Okay, so it has been an interesting moment with you on the show, Nicholas. To bring this to an end, what would you like to leave the audience with? Like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, how can that be possible?
I think at the beginning of this call, you were talking about how I saw the learning opportunity in everything. That's not true. I only saw the learning opportunity after the time. So sometimes when you are in a situation, you might not see the value, or you might not see a light at the end of the tunnel where you are right now. But if you give it time and a bit of consideration, and you reflect on what you've done, then you can get the learnings. The learnings don't just magically appear in your head. So I think if I can give folks that bit of guidance, don't be too hasty to learn everything, and don't worry that you don't understand everything right now. It will come. Just be open to it. In terms of where you can get hold of me, you can go to kuhne.no, so that's kuhne.no, and all of my podcasts, all of my details are available there for you to take a look at. And you can find me on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, the whole gamut.
Beautiful. Okay, what is the name of your podcast again? Can you repeat it?
It is, the name of my podcast is From Startup to Wunderbrand. And there we talk about everything to do with digital marketing, entrepreneurship. And so if you want a beginner course into what's happening in AI, what's happening in Facebook, TikTok, all of those things, and want to apply it to your own business, that's what you should listen to.
Beautiful. So that's going to be the end of the show, Nicholas. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this amazing insight with us. It means a whole lot, man. Thank you.